I'm a 911 dispatcher, and 6 months ago I broke one of the strictest rules of my job. It's the only reason 2 bodies were ever found. My wife and I were drowning in bills, newly married, expecting our first child, when I landed a job in emergency communications. Good pay, dental insurance, a pension, exactly what we needed. Training took 3 weeks. Over and over they drilled the same rule into us. You are a router, not a savior. Get the address. Send the units. Do not let callers pull you into their panic. On my 3rd week working solo at 3 in the morning, a call came through. It was a little girl, whispering so quietly I had to press my hand against my other ear just to hear her. Please help me, I'm in the basement. It is very cold. I asked for her address as I started tracing the line. My dad did something awful to Mommy, she said, voice trembling but steady. She is lying on the kitchen floor and she won't wake up. He told me to go to the basement and lock the door. I am scared. The address populated on my screen, an older subdivision on the edge of the county. I reached to dispatch a unit. A hand landed on my shoulder before I could hit the key. My shift supervisor. He leaned over and rerouted the call himself. Cancel the dispatch, he said flatly. You are not sending anyone to that address. She said her mother's unresponsive. Her father locked her in the basement. That house has been empty for 5 months, the senior dispatcher next to me cut in. The family who lived there vanished one night last winter. Nobody knows where they went. Then who's on the phone? I asked. My supervisor explained they got that exact call at least once a week. Sheriff's deputies had searched the house 3 separate times, the yard, the outbuildings, the crawl spaces, completely empty, abandoned. The order from the sheriff's office was simple: log it as a glitch and move on. Through my headset, I could still hear the faint drip of a pipe, impossibly close to the microphone. Are you still there? The girl whispered. I hear something on the stairs. I disconnected the call. That night I lay awake for hours, that dripping pipe still echoing in my head. I told myself it was a prank. It had to be. But the calls didn't stop. The next night, same address, same girl. It is so dark down here. I can hear him walking on the kitchen floor above me. He has a hammer. I told her quietly enough that my supervisor wouldn't hear that the police had already checked that house. There was nobody there. I am under the stairs, she sobbed. Hiding behind the wood, please tell them to hurry. I logged it as a glitch, just like I was told. But the guilt sat in my chest like a stone. Every night for 2 weeks straight, the same call came in. The same voice, the same terror, the same background noise. It was too consistent to be a prank. On my day off, I couldn't stand it anymore. I drove out to the house myself without telling my wife. It was a split-level ranch, gray siding, overgrown yard, a faded real estate sign leaning in the front lawn. I forced the sliding glass door open in the back and stepped inside. The place was completely empty. No furniture, no blood on the kitchen linoleum, just dust. I found the basement door near the pantry and went down. Unfinished concrete walls, a disconnected water heater, and a slow drip from an overhead pipe hitting the floor. Drip, 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 the exact sound from the calls. I checked under the stairs. Nothing but old paint cans and spiderwebs. I knocked on every wall, solid concrete throughout. I left embarrassed, telling myself the supervisor had been right all along. I promised myself I'd stop answering. The next night at work, the green light flashed again. Same address. Against my coworker's advice, I picked it up anyway. This time, no whispering girl, no dripping pipe. Just silence and then a woman's voice, exhausted and flat. Why do you keep answering? She asked. The others stopped listening months ago. Why do you keep listening to her? Because she's scared, I said quietly. Who is this? If you want to comfort her, the woman said, you need to go back to the house. You didn't look closely enough. Behind the basement stairs, there's a wooden partition wall. 3rd vertical stud from the left. There's a rusted nail near the floor. Pull it. What's behind the wall? I asked, my hands going cold. She's waiting for you. The line went dead. I couldn't focus for the rest of my shift. The second it ended, I drove straight back to the house, morning light just breaking over the trees. I went down into that basement again, straight to the space behind the stairs, and started counting studs. 1, 2, 3. There near the floor was the rusted nail, just like she said. I pried it loose with a multi-tool. The moment it slipped free, the entire plywood partition swung open like a door, revealing a narrow crawl space hidden directly beneath the staircase. The smell hit me first, thick, sweet, unmistakable rot. I gagged and nearly dropped my phone. Inside, on the dirt floor, were two shapes wrapped in torn blue plastic tarps, sealed with duct tape, chewed open in places by rodents. I shined my light on the smaller one. A tiny skeletal hand protruded through a tear in the plastic. Beside it lay a small pink toy phone, its battery compartment rusted shut from years in the damp earth. I stumbled back, vomited on the basement floor, and ran outside to call the sheriff. Within 15 minutes, the quiet street was filled with flashing lights and a forensics team in white suits. The lead investigator told me they'd searched that house 3 times when the family disappeared and had never found any sign of a hidden crawlspace. Whoever built it had framed it to look like part of the foundation itself. Dental records confirmed it, the mother and her 7-year-old daughter, blunt force trauma. The father was the prime suspect, and he'd vanished the same night, wiping the bank accounts and selling the family car under a fake name. There had been a federal warrant out for months with no lead and no crime scene until I found that room. When he asked how I knew to look there, I lied and said I'd noticed uneven framing while checking the structural integrity of an abandoned property. He studied me for a long moment before letting it go. I went home and held my wife for a long time without telling her any of the details. The calls stopped completely after that. For weeks, that little girl's voice had been the one constant of my night shifts. Now there was only the ordinary hum of routine emergencies and a strange, hollow feeling where the dread used to be. I kept working dispatch for 3 more months. We paid off our debts. We bought a crib. The financial nightmare that had nearly crushed us was finally gone. But I never stopped thinking about the father, still out there somewhere under a new name, walking free while his wife and daughter had spent years in that dirt crawlspace. Then, tonight, an hour after my shift ended, the supervisor's auxiliary line started ringing in an empty office. I picked it up myself. Silence for a few seconds, then that same flat, tired voice. "They got him," she said. "He was working as a night watchman 3 counties over. He's in the back of a cruiser right now." "It's over," I said. "He's going to prison." "Yes," she said, "but I wanted to thank you for answering, for listening to her when everyone else hung up." "She doesn't have to call anymore," I said, feeling a tear slide down my face. "No," the woman agreed. "She's finally asleep." The line clicked dead. The father is in custody now. The trial starts in the fall. For the first time in 6 months, I'm going to go home and actually sleep, without that dripping pipe echoing in my head. I just hope that when the silence finally comes, it means she's really at rest, and not just that she doesn't need me anymore.